Alright, guys, welcome back to my new channel. It's nice to be with you today. And for today's reaction, I like to look into the book "The 48 Laws of Power" by Robert Greene. This book in itself is a very interesting book. It's a book about how can you gain more power. And when we think of power, when we think of gaining authority, gaining power within this world, we think of it as being something bad. We think of it being something negative. But in our reality, it is not actually like that. Power is actually good if you use it right. And if you want to even be successful in this life, you need power. You need some sort of authority. And alright, guys, since I believe the groundwork, we will now look into the 40 laws of power. So let's roll the tape, and I'll give you my honest opinion, my honest reaction to it. So let's just roll the tape.
Power is something that's part of human nature. There's no such thing as a group of people who don't want power. So that's why you need to read the book. In case you don't know, this is the 48 Laws of Power, a book that I wrote in 1998, and it's about to have its 25th anniversary this coming year. Why should you read this book? Well, if you don't want a life full of pain and misery, you want to read this book. The reason is, power is this kind of weird game that goes on in the world. It has its own rules, its own conventions, its own laws, but nobody talks about them. Nobody writes about them. And you're kind of thrown out into the world when you're 23 years old, and suddenly or 22, and suddenly you discover that you're doing all of the wrong things, and that you're talking too much, you're trying too hard to make people insecure, you're being too naive, you're too in people's faces, you're trusting people too much, on and on. You make all of these mistakes, and it's painful. It costs you years of emotional trauma. You get fired, you don't know why you got fired. You get in a fight with a colleague, you don't know why, and it's bitter. You hire a terrible business partner who ends up stealing your company. On and on and on and on and on. These things are real. They are not imagined. They're not something in a television show. It is something going on every single day in every office in America and in the world, right? But nobody tells you how to navigate this thing. This book is there. It's like a straight shot of whiskey. I'm not covering things up. I'm not bullshitting with you. I'm not trying to soft pedal them and make everything look nice and pleasant. I'm giving you the world straight as it is. You might think when you first look at the book it's a bit frightening. Crush your enemy totally? I don't have any enemies. I don't want to crush them. I'm a nice guy. That's fine. It's not about you going out and using all of these laws. A lot of it is about defense, knowing that there are malevolent, aggressive, toxic people out there. Here's how you defend yourself. Here are the rules of combat, the rules of the game, so you don't violate them, so you don't make a mess of all of the games that are being played and set yourself back years, even decades in your life. How to navigate more easily the power environment. Because power is something that's part of human nature. There's no such thing as a group of people who don't want power. All right? So that's why you need to read the book. The second thing is, how have I used the laws of power in my own life? Well, it's a little bit odd to ask that because when I wrote the book, it kind of made me successful. And it put me in a position where I don't really have to use the laws so much. But I have used them in various ways. It's definitely true. So, for instance, there's a law in there that I tell people is incredibly important. It's called Learn to Keep People Dependent on You, law number 11. Perhaps the most important law of all. The idea is, if you're replaceable in your job, if somebody younger, cheaper, and better looking, can take your position, you'll be fired tomorrow and they'll come in and they'll replace you, right? So you want to make people dependent on you. You want to be the one person who can do what you do. So for me, this has been my strategy of life. I talk about my books all the time. A lot of writers are very secretive. They don't want to reveal what they're doing next. I talk about it. I don't care because nobody can write the kind of books that I write. I'm not bragging. It's just that the way I do things is so different and so peculiar and with certain amount of effort and research that it's not replicable. So I've created a position in my niche in the book world where I don't have to depend on other people. I can write my own ticket because I do something that nobody else can replace, okay? I don't think there's anybody who could write the 48 Laws of Power out there besides me, because it's a reflection of my own weirdness, my own uniqueness, which is extremely important. Another law is interaction with boldness. Very important. Law 28. I had a partner on this book, a man named Joost Elfers. You see his name down here. Very brilliant man, Dutchman, who packaged the book, who did the design, etc. And when we finished it, we turned it in, and you know that the 48 Laws of Power is very different. It's very weird. There's nothing else out there like it. It's very bold in its difference, for better or for worse. The editors, when we first turned it in, a year before publication the editor had a meeting with me. She goes, Robert, can we change this a little bit? Can we soften it? Can we maybe not have so many different sections? And I said, no, you either take it as it is or we're walking away from your very large advance. I don't care. This is the book as it is. It's different, it's bold. If it fails, it fails, but this is how it is. Take it or leave it. And they ended up taking it. Being bold and not apologizing about it is what made it so successful. The final one is disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring is the best revenge. I believe it's 36. Anyway, I recently had somebody whose name I will not mention, who I found initially very interesting. I let him into my life. He worked with me on various different things. And then I discovered that it wasn't working out. We didn't mesh well together. Our ideas weren't congruent. We didn't have a similar spirit. And I wanted to kind of break off the relationship. And he wouldn't have it. He just kept coming at me and coming at me and coming at me and coming at me, complaining, blaming me, yelling at me, saying I'm blah, 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 every single day. And I just thought, all right, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to get enmeshed in it, right? Because it's going to ruin me. It's going to make me look weak. I'm just going to ignore it. It doesn't exist. I've got my own life to lead. Ignoring petty things is the ultimate form of power. Assume formlessness. I know that law number. That's 48. I use all the time. I never repeat the same book twice. I'm always on to the next project. I use all of the laws, to be honest with you. So that gives you a sense of how important they've been in my daily life. But I can't emphasize enough. I know it's my own book and I have a stake in you buying it. But I can't emphasize enough because I've received so many emails from people who said, I'm not an evil person. I'm not a bad person. But man, your book saved me from so many bad situations, from outshining the master, from talking too much, from putting too much trust in friends. Thank you, Robert. So I think the book is important as much for defense as it is for offense.
So from listening to the audiobook, from listening to the words of Robert Greene himself, we can all come into a mutual agreement that if you actually want power, and me myself from watching the video from beginning to end, I can say that power is important, and if you want to live a successful life, you need some amount of power, not only to better yourself in this reality, not only better yourself in this world, but it's also important that you defend yourself against the whoremongers, against the evil doers that try every day to bring you down to nothing. So I'd like to say back again, read the book, 48 Laws of Power. I read it myself, and it's a very nice book. It's nice being with you again today, Study Preps, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
In a world of knowledge, where dreams take flight, there's a channel that guides the sun and is so strong. Meant to and friend with wisdom and passion, he'll help us strengthen, help us strengthen.